Good afternoon. Today we're going to be recording this video for my Grand Canyon University class PSC 495. Instructor is Jesse Richer. I'm going to be talking about the negative effects of the sleep disorders that is prevalent on the fire department, especially on firefighters, due to the lack of sleep, which causes negative effects. Sleep disorders are highly prevalent in the populations of fire department. These in turn affect their moods and have effects on the welfare and academic performance of firefighters and responders. The purpose of this proposal is to determine that the prevalence of sleep disorders that might be affecting firefighters. That is why the proposal is aimed at tackling improvement in all the fire departments and rest time, setting up a certain rest time as part of the SOP to make sure that the firefighters are well rested before going to work. These effects are linked to numerous qualified personnel that are on duty any given day at work. The result of several studies link the departmental personnel with the sleep patterns and work performance as evident health outcomes, where measurement of the findings for individual compare use in the type of work and sleep habits with others who have pattern more traditional link or healthy. However, other variables can also affect the findings of those that work longer hours. That can do so because of financial pressures. People always volunteering for overtime, and a lot of times they are not able to perform when they're not well rested due to, like I said, financial pressure that are caused on their daily lives, and cause them to work overtime and not care much of resting and to perform well and safely. On the hand of some firefighter, they can select additional nights shift due to daytime demands, generating work patterns that can be problematic. Again, they a lot of time, depending on a case by case scenario on how the department is run, bosses will want to change people around depending on the peak hours or depending of covering personnel, and that affect people because a lot of times other firefighters are called in a non-volunteer basis to be able to cover those shifts and make sure vacations are covered and make sure that personal leaves or anything that might arise is covered, and the wheels keep on turning, meaning the truck keep going out the door, responding to calls. Financially, studies indicate that the servers are happily in their jobs and perceive the structure of the work as fair, are more willing to feel better by long work hours. In other studies, retired police officers were asked on how they felt while they were working nights. As a result, clearly indicated that individuals perceive the situation worse, and they realized at the time. Satisfied personnel can better tolerate longer working hours. It is also possible that some employees may gradually get used to their schedule and consequently underestimate the adverse impact. It does happen. A lot of people just work and they forget to take the understand the negative impact, of not resting while being emergency personnel, when a lot of times it is you are required to make a split-second decisions, and when you're not able to, when you're not well rested, a lot of times you don't make the right decisions, or you don't have the ability to fulfill the job at 100%, and being able to deliver results is based upon your ability as an emergency personnel to make split-second decisions. Also, the shares of firefighters are exposed on many risk factors and lack of restful sleep that can increase that risk. The lack of quality sleep could be multifactorial, where long shifts or hard work are included, and the effect of the quality of the sleep is influenced by high prevalences of disorders that is of the undiagnosed sleep. Having approach quite limited in practices how the performance of firefighters is affected, but plans to establish a program that is voluntarily tested. That can be understood as diagnosis of treatments in order to substantially reduce the absence of fire, injury, and disability. It is important to understand that the organization that the accidents are related to fatigues and injuries are often underestimated. However, contribute substantially to the risk of occupational and safety and health. Responders are a factor of promising tool for situation analysis to reduce accidents that are associated to each department. I can also say that every department is different, is run on different way by their chiefs and the health and safety officers and the scheduling officers, but there is a lot of risk involved with unrested personnel on the fire and emergency in their emergency field that could be handled by understanding, making the personnel understand that rest is not a choice, it's a must, as well as physical fitness. Firefighters are not meeting standards fatigue response due to extensive shifts, as I said, because of also poor quality of sleep and lack of sleep. A lot of times, again, there's no a clear organization or a clear SOP of how a personnel is how long is the minimum resting. It's unclear. A lot of times departments don't have, it's an issue in fact that departments don't have a clear standard of how much they need to sleep. Responder, they contribute, like I said, substantially to the risk of occupational and safety hazard. And like I said, in what I've learned about the quality of sleep responders, it's clear that 100% of responders within the range of acceptability without the negative cause of performance. However, 25% of the sample has a risk of experiencing increased fatigue over the 75% of the firefighters in service. The cause of the effect: failures in conducting rescue exercises or emergency care, as well as an impact of the cost of the time in training exercises, which could affect the service errors, but not having the information provided in the training could be also an issue. In what has been learned in the investigation of these joint exercises with current studies, it is evident that firefighters were assigned to the randomly studies for analysis they have participated in education sessions and had the opportunity to get a diagnosis on the disorder of sleep. However, yet no difference, those no different have been found in the association with the sleep disorder, which can be very confusing and a lot of time conflicting as well. And the accident tend to happen on those groups that are analyzed as having a lot of accidents. The majority of the accidents, as per the research, have happened between those groups that are analyzed, that we can know that have a lack of sleep. My proposed solution is, there's three of them, not really hard. The first, which I've mentioned, make sure that there's a program in place for each emergency department and for all drivers of service vehicles, where it's judged that fatigue is associated with a very little sleep and long hours of work, that there's a clear target as to where is the minimum rest required before performing on duty. The second one, changes in working hours, focusing more on higher risk individuals, and these with poor quality of sleep identified. So if someone is not really a good sleeper at night, maybe he can work night shift and let him sleep throughout the day. So that's for the chief or the scheduling officer to be able to understand the needs of each of those individuals that are wrong on the shift, and understand where are they high risk. Are they a night sleeper? Are they day sleepers? Can they get very fatigued if they work overtime? So instead of tagging those people with the additional duties, just tackles either might be age, might be obesity. There might be different reasons that will make someone get more fatigued than others. So you have to put ACEs in places by identifying what the type of department or personnel you are running, and making strategic decisions to make sure that personnel are scheduled in the best need of the department and in the best way that they can perform. The last thing I've encountered as a proposed solution is to assess the cost and benefits of the limits set by the program of prevention of adverse events associated with the fatigue in reduction or lack of sufficient working hours. That will take care of the problem as well. Also, a plan, a change management, and the term of exposure to injuries. Firefighters stationed at intervention stations, they had 1 or 2 shifts of 24 hours on average during a year, compared to the firefighters in control station. Firefighters are EMS responders, which are medical personnel that's attached or tagged to medical emergency duties. They could be running an ambulance and whatnot in a fire department, are working in a wide variety of jobs with different work structures. The idea is to perform prospective evaluation of different formats, working to reduce fatigues and increase the quality of sleep. In fire station, it can be implemented strategies, changes for 24-hour shifts to a 12-hour shift rotation, to try to avoid that fatigue when a department is very, very busy. Using rotation with 3 days of 12 hours and 2 days off and 2 days of shift of 12 hours and 3 days off is something that we can see in the department, and it can stimulate the overall effects of long working hours. Instead of working long, 48 hours work, 48 hours on, 48 hours off is just too long for some departments to be able to work, especially if there's a high indicator of a stress found in an injury rate. So those busier departments should work the least possible days together, and then just have the most time off, to make sure that, like I said, the stimulation of overall effects are not being doesn't become an issue that can affect safety, health and safety, as well as their way to perform. The concept of stress is a working model of firefighters. I believe that stress is affected for several factors beside the working hours. There's a lot of things that impacts firefighters. Among firefighters, they could be life-threatening events, and in general, the latter issues are reported in major success of a stress or firefighter, disrupted by sleep patterns, and also firefighters that are not immune to these adverse consequences. In a survey that was made for between 700 firefighters, work stress was evaluated and found disturbance of sleep, and they've also interruption or insufficient, which were classified as the major cause of stress for about 1/3 of firefighter. This survey was done by Murphy in 1994, Murphy et. And the participants were professional firefighters from the Pacific Northwest who responded to anonymous survey mailed, and we use a tool to index the standard of occupational stress. Most were men, and on average had been firefighters for 12 years. Other studies have also noted the working structure of the firefighters as a source of stress. So the working structure could again impact their stress. In conclusion, of class of action, some firefighters should include them health education on sleep disorder. So I believe that every department should have a clear SOP, SOG regulations and clear resources of where to find health education on sleep disorders and sleep opportunity screening, depending on their injury rate or depending on the performance, to identify if performance can become a matter of improvement. That can be done by utilizing the opportunity again of a screening that can reduce the injuries and loss of work due to disability that could be generated to the disorders of the loss of sleep and getting someone hurt. A specific health education of a sleep relationship risk must be a call to implement programs that should be incorporated into the health initiative and welfare of the workplace to reduce the physical and mental and financial accidents at work. These work related to a sleepiness in fire that could be avoidable. The health and safety officer should make clear what the standards would be, and he should take charge and make sure those, like I said, those resources and regulations and SOPs are clear by ensuring training in a set amount of time. But again, this has to be handled by both the chief officer and the health and safety officer to make sure is handled on a case-by-case scenario on each firehouse. I think that every firehouse could be different depending on the volume of stress that they handle, and it has to be implemented by each of them individually, because not every department runs the same calls, the same amount of calls, the same type of incidents that could increase or decrease the amount of stress that is handled by each department. So the health and safety officer should make sure that there's a good plan in place, and the education is not at stake here. Yeah, it was nice recording this video. I hope there was a whole lot of information. There's much more to learn. Resources are online, and resources are also here on paper that I've submitted. I'll be glad to pass more information to you. My email is mcdanh1@gmail.com. That's M as in Michael, C as in Charlie, D as in Delta, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, H as in Henriquez, my last name, number 1, at gmail.com. Any questions you might have about this video and any resources that I might be able to, from charts to papers to resources, peer verified resources that I've pulled and I've researched, that I've performed, I'd be glad to forward if might be useful for you to know, and any questions I'll be glad to answer. Have a good night and see you later.